But it is important to, have your finger in the pulse, to be aware of what's out there, to be aware of, global trends and global movements and things like that, and then and morph with what's happening.
Welcome back to the Bankhouse Media Podcast. On today's show, I'm joined by Cathy Martin. Cathy is a lady who wears many hats. She was my first PR agent with CMPR 12 years ago, the founder of Belfast Fashion Week, and just much, much more. Cathy, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Delighted to be here, Matthew.
So, Cathy, I find myself back in Belfast after 10 years being away, and you were my first person that I actually had stepped onto the scene with when you represented me years ago.
I know, and it seems kind of forever ago, and yet you're still exactly the same.
I know, well, so were you. The first event I ever went to was Belfast Fashion Week. That was the first one, and I can remember meeting you that night and having the crack. So that was good. How did that come about?
So there had been a pre-existing version, I suppose, of Fashion Week before, but anyway, I formed mine in the latter part of 2004, and had the first event in 2005. It was the sort of first kind of consumer fashion week. So it was a series of fashion shows by retailers for consumers, because obviously all the big fashion weeks around the world, London, Paris, Milan, New York, are for our designers showcase or brands showcasing to retail buyers. So this was good because it brought a bit of that fashion theatre to, Joe and Josephine blogs. And it was super well received. And then it was kind of emulated, if you like, as a best practice. So other versions of it were created around the UK and Ireland and elsewhere. In Liverpool, in Manchester, in Glasgow, and then in London there was even the sort of the West End kind of Regent Street, Oxford Street kind of fashion week. So yeah, it was a brilliant event. I could and should be doing season 30 right now, this wow. Next month. That's not going to happen. So I will do my 30th season, hopefully in spring, depending on what the guidelines say. And I would love that to be a big event, but we're all at the mercy of what's going to happen next.
Well, that's it. You never know. And as you said, I do think that my best friend owns Silk in Newry, and she featured several times in Belfast Fashion Week. And as you said, it was brilliant because it made it all so accessible as well for people that were going. They could physically go and buy the clothes straight after.
So it was immediate. People who saw clothes at a fashion show on a Thursday night could go and buy them on a Friday. Whereas, if you're a buyer for Harrods or Harvey Nicks or Matches or whatever, attending London Fashion Week, you will buy those clothes, but your customers won't be able to buy them for at least 6 months. So, it's about accessibility. I wasn't trying to compete with the big boys. It was very much about, ordinary people experiencing the theatre
and massive events. Even that one that you done in the City Hall over there, you walk straight off the other end.
Yes.
That one was amazing. And then the car park one in Victoria Square.
Yeah, the car park one in Victoria Square is definitely my favourite out of all the shows that we did, because it was such a massively long catwalk, except there was no actual staging. It was just on the ground. It was lovely and warm because underground meant that it was warm inside. The audience all sat in these cool perspex chairs. We lit it in quite a raw way. Yeah. And it was great to see some of the big designers actually hosting shows inside car parks then afterwards. Yeah. I had never seen or heard of anyone doing one like that before. So we did try and be innovative, but you are limited here in terms of what spaces you can use and in terms of their capacity and shape and whatever. So
and that's something you're going to face going forward. Like now, people like my clients have had to become much more innovative. I'm business mentoring for Intertrade Ireland and also for local enterprise office. So we've been like shifting a lot of people like in different directions. Something that I've been doing over the past decade because of going bankrupt and loads of different things. But with you, you've had to do it twice, season on season. So and that's one thing after following you online and seeing where your businesses went and how you've been innovative at all times. You've been very much finger on the pulse and have changed a lot.
Well, I think you have to learn to diversify, and that's one of the key ways that you succeed and survive. And that doesn't mean to say you completely, you're a complete chameleon. But it is important to, have your finger in the pulse, to be aware of what's out there, to be aware of, global trends and global movements and things like that. And then and morph with what's happening. Or, be part of the leading the change, and do it before everybody else. And I kind of tried to do that, but sometimes even when you go looking for change, then it's almost too contrived.
Yeah.
So I just tried to work with really creative people and have creative ideas, and then try and nurture my own creative ideas, but within budgets. You know, and events are funny. And obviously with lockdown, you know, my last event was on, I think, the 12th of March or something like that. And I really miss events. I miss the buzz of real people, human touch events. I miss hugs. I'm a tactile person. So I miss all of that. And I can't wait to, you know, to do events properly. I did do a very limited, socially distanced picnic in my garden at the beginning of August. And we had a health and safety expert come and measure that out beforehand. And everybody respected, there were people who were in kind of bubbles as well. Yeah. Everybody respected the distance. So that worked really, really well. I'd love to do more of those. But at that point we were like 30 people. Now it's only 15. So I'm hoping we can go back up again. Just so that there's just a whole different ethos to a face-to-face event.
What do you think about like online social events at all? Like it just...
I've done a few, as in participated in a few and run a few, and oh gosh, whilst I see Zoom as kind of a necessity, and you know, I'm not loving it. Yeah. I'm not, there's not enough innovation there. There's not enough, you know, you can put a backdrop up or whatever, but to me, you know, somebody suggested our book club happened by Zoom the other night, and I'm just like, I can't do it. I do Zoom for meetings and work, but I just can't get myself to do the social thing. And that's me, that's personal, and I might change my mind, so I could completely eat my words. But I just...
Yeah, I do you want to know what? Like we've been working remotely for a year before this happened. The March previous, because I spent a month out in Spain, and we had already moved my business.
I moved out of my office already. So working from home is nothing new for me, but it's just...
But we always gravitated back to the office, like always went back to the office, because we still got an office in Dublin and an office here. And we're all in Belfast for 3 days next week. And I cannot wait, because I am just not getting it. I'm not getting the same vibe from Zoom. I can't wait to get back into the room with people, you know.
Even reading people's eyes, you know, and, you know, tone of voices obviously can be massively misinterpreted in text. Yeah. So going on Zoom or video calls takes that away a little bit. Yeah. But actually... being present with someone and kind of feeling their vibe is something that you can't.
You know, if they're excited about it, stuff, and you know if this is a runner.
Exactly, and you know, I don't know. I'm just really. I think because events, you know, I've since kind of my 16th birthday, and I organize feeling the fire and the passion of organizing that. You know, events are in my blood, and
they will be back though. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They will be back, and they will be back in full thing. So whenever we look at being innovative and coming through, so much has changed with social media. Do you know what I mean? With like Instagram, and you know, you even said, and we were just chatting before this about even the talent that you represent now. You were saying it was TV, and you know. So what have you found in the change in the past like 15 years?
Well, obviously social media has changed all of us, because we all have our own channels now, I suppose. Yeah. So we can put out whatever content we want and whatever content we choose. Now, for some people, that's not nice content. And we'll talk about that maybe later on.
Yeah.
But for most people, you know, curating your own content is a lovely opportunity. You know, for me, I use Facebook, for example, to share lots of family things, but I would have shared work things as well. I'm a real open book, and I like share whatever with my family, with my friends, and that's just the way I always have been. So I use social media in a similar way, in that I was open book on there too. But you know, you have to be aware that other people might not necessarily believe and think the same way as you. But going back to your main question, which was about the change in social media and online in general, you know, I do think social media should be a social place. I do think it should be all about, you know, interacting with each other, engaging with each other, community, you know, positivity. It's terrible, I think, since 2016 and the Trump-Clinton elections and Brexit, when we all, I think, globally really saw a twist and a turn in how social media was used in almost a sinister and secretive way without our knowledge. And I think that really turned. And
Set the tone.
It kind of set the tone for, I think, where we've been the last 4 years. And we're teetering on this brink of, like, I just feel sometimes like we're back in the 30s and verging, I'm not going to say fascism, but, we're there somewhere. And I just think, before that, when President Obama was elected, for example, he used Twitter and Facebook in a really positive way to garner support and to tell good stories and, to be himself. And he won his election. Probably a lot to do with social media. Donald Trump won his election, even though he didn't win the majority vote in the end. He won his election to do with social media, but in a twisted and sinister way. So I think, we all learned that while social media is a great place to be, and it's great to use it as a platform and it's great to share, what we put out on social media is usually an extension of who we are as people, individually, I'm talking about. But that also applies to companies. So if you're a really cool, say a millennial company, and sometimes I hate that moniker, but like say a company that's really young and hip and their tone of voice is all dude and, like, let's do this stuff. If they talk like that in real life, and if that's what their brand ethos is all about and the product itself and what the product or service delivers, then of course their marketing via their social media should reflect that. But, I don't really see any sinister companies apart from the politicos who've manipulated social media. But if you're a manipulative individual or a negative individual, that can and is reflected in your social media. And quite often people hide behind fake accounts. So I just think social media was amazing back, in 2007. It wasn't always amazing, sorry. I don't want to make a sweeping generalization. But, the advent of there was MySpace and Bebo and all of those things way back in the day. But Facebook, I think, was the main one and still probably leading. And Facebook, of course, owned WhatsApp and Instagram, and they're all different versions of the same thing. But I think Facebook was mostly really, really positive. For me now, I use Facebook for more family stuff. And then I joined Instagram, I think, in 2014. So that was probably a couple of years after it was created. So I was a little bit late to the party. And, the early days of Instagrams were all about selfies and fun. But then it became a very, very quickly, because it's photo-led, became a very aesthetic place and curated place. And some would say contrived. And some would say the images are too fixed. And I don't just mean people's images. I mean, like, a beautiful sunset, but the images are distorted and whatever. But, I think if you look at Instagram or indeed any social media, and again I'm jumping from being an individual to talking about brands, if you look at any social media, whether that's for an individual or brand, you've got to open your eyes and see for yourself. And I think what I've learned of late is that people who suspect hidden agendas and twist things and whatever are usually coming from that place themselves. But back to business though, I think, social media is a brilliant place to grow a brand. In terms of marketing, it's a super cost-effective way to grow your brand and engage directly with your customers and consumers in general. So I think if you have a brand, you mentioned your friends in Silk. So, Silk can set up a Shopify. They can sell directly from their Instagram page. Even if you're a tractor company, I've just seen a tractor go by, even if you're a tractor company, you can show fantastic pictures of your tractors at work in fields. The benefits of the big treads and the tires, all of those kinds of things. It's about telling stories, and it's about how you use social media to tell those stories. And
what I find is, like, you can allow if you're an expert in a field, you can, like, share your knowledge with somebody else and educate them. I think it's a brilliant platform for educating, as you said, like with skin, with hair, with with marketing, with tips and tricks. We try to use it as like an educational tool. We're like having this podcast where someone comes on and says, gives her their information. The one thing that you sort of said there, and this is the one thing that we find with our clients, you're like, I'm jumping from personal, I'm going to go back to business. In Instagram, the lines are blurred.
Very much so.
Like, we work with Adam Collard, Sarah Godfrey, like they've got big influence and followings. They've got, like, we work with different people on there who run their businesses, but again, they're out at the weekend having shots with their friends and it's their personal life. And the consumer is kind of not happy with it. They're like, it's
but the thing is, people buy from people, really. If you go back to sort of marketing basics, people do buy from people, and that's where the sort of the whole idea of the charming salesperson comes from. You know, be that an Avon traditional, this is very stereotypical, your Avon lady, or like that door-to-door salesman kind of thing, or the car salesman. You know, they're very, very, very stereotyped examples. You know, but people do generally buy from people, and people are also inherently quite nosy. You know, as human beings, we are a very curious species, much more curious than most other species, animal species in the world. And it's our curiosity that has led to our advancement. Sorry, it's probably very philosophical, but I think curiosity is a very generic way to talk about the nosiness, if you like. And maybe that sounds unkind or negative, but, you know, we are curious to see what people are up to. So, you know, people do take an interest in, well, how or why or when is this person successful, or what does the lady who makes the paper flowers do behind the scenes, you know. And then there are people who showed their personal lives first and then created businesses, like the Kardashians or some of the traditional influencers out there. And I would never call myself an influencer, and I rarely call others influencers. I would talk about influencer marketing, because I think it's marketing using people who have influence to tell your stories for you or with you. So I think going back to the blurred lines thing, yes, I definitely think lines are blurred. Is that good for you and your business? Well, in my opinion, it depends on your personality. Are you happy enough to profile yourself as part of your business, or are you not? Now, when I go back to my traditional PR hat, there are lots of clients who would say, no, I will not be in a profile picture. I will not be part of the press release. Don't quote me in anything. And sometimes that goes against them, and sometimes that goes for them, and they want to purely focus on the product. Now, when you're a PR person writing a press release and your client is saying they don't want to be quoted in it, no, we don't, you know. So if I'm pitching in a business story to the Irish News business editor, you know, he'll say, well, Cathy, what's the turnover of this company? How many staff do they employ? What's their profit margin, whatever? And I'll go back to the client and say, hey, we need this, because if you want to be in the business pages, you have to give this kind of information. And some clients will be like, oh, I just want to talk about my product. But you can't just talk about the product, because this is a newspaper. It's not a corporate brochure. So there has to be an understanding that that's how traditional PR works, and therefore we need to apply some of those basic rules to social media as well. It's slightly different. The name social media has socio in it, which is great, people, humans, whatever. So, you know, I think we either need to be those humans telling our own stories, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the business owner. It can be ambassadors or advocates within your company telling those stories. For example, in Fashion Week, I would have used some of the models to tell behind the scenes stories on our Instagram. Or, you know, you can choose yourself to profile yourself or your staff, and do it that way. But you definitely need to kind of tell that story. I'm the same as you. Like, I'm like, you know, be yourself, like be the business that you are, especially because so many people now are leading businesses because of their passion. Do you know what I mean? They're not doing it just for money anymore. They're saying, I loved flower arranging. I've opened a flower. Look at my flowers. I done this flower press whenever I was 7. You know, bring out the scrapbook that you done it. Show the people that I'm all about that. I'm all about opening it up. The reason why my thing with blurred lines was, sometimes people think that they can talk to a human being like they're talking to a brand that doesn't have a feeling. Do you know what I mean? I think that's where that's my biggest problem with the blurred line is. And I think it's like, you know, if someone wants to ridicule somebody, they're forgetting that, okay, they are a business, they've got a business name, they're a limited company, but at the same time, that's that person that's created that, and you're speaking directly to it. You know, and I think that's where it is. That is one thing that I really have seen with you over the past like couple of months. You know, you're very an open book, which I love to watch, and I wish I was a bit more like you. And do you want to know what? I'm actually your inspiration, definitely, because I'm thinking the more you share, the more you can help other people. And yes, you are going to get a bit of shit, but take it on the chin, you know? Well, I'm a bit older, so you know, and I've been through a lot of stuff in my real life, my personal life and whatever. And all of that kind of life experience makes you a little bit tougher, or it gives you coping mechanisms to navigate your way through other difficult situations in life. And I think I come from a big family, and you're bolstered by them, and like there are lots of reasons why potentially I am a bit more don't give a monkeys, right? But yes, people I had one person who was constantly messaging me and changing accounts every single day, and I'm like, block. Next day, new account, block. Next day, new account, block. And this went on, and it's just like, I am so bored of you. I am so bored of you. And my approach with the unkind thing is, I won't kill you with kindness, because there's no point trying to negotiate with these people or make them like you or any of those things, because they've decided in their head that they don't like you or your brand if you're a business. And there's very little you can do to change their mind. So if you try to do that, you will use up so much energy and you will get lost in their negativity. And it's just really bad for you as a person. And it's probably bad for them that you start to engage with them, because they'll wallow in all of that. So my thing is to just kill them with blindness. I don't see you. Now, that doesn't mean I don't take on board what people say. And I've always been an open book. And if people have feedback for me on what I do in my Instagram stories, because let's face it, I'm kind of mostly on Instagram. So if you have feedback for me, please tell me. I will take and accept criticism or feedback.
It's how we grow.
It's how we grow.
Yeah.
So, and people have said to me before, so I remember once ages ago, I think it was January, I shared this picture of a little calf stealing food from another calf's trough right next to it. But the two calves' necks were through what looked like bars. Well, they were bars. And I said, I hate that those calves are in like what looks like, contained cages. And then, about 15 farmers' wives or farmers or people from right across the United Kingdom and Ireland, at least within like half an hour, said to me, Cathy, they're just feeding things. Here's a picture of them bigger. And I was like, right, okay, sorry, I'm not. Okay. I wasn't aware of that, and I wasn't saying straight away, hey,
animal cruelty.
I wasn't implying animal cruelty. I think I said something like, I hate that they're so constrained when they're eating. But it was funny because the little guy was kind of stealing the other guy's food. Anyway, so I took all of that criticism and I said, thank you for educating me. And I didn't take the post down, but I put something up after. And I think it's it's okay if you make a mistake, and you can either acknowledge it with the person in your DMs and then make a change or an announcement. But if it's not big enough to make a whole big song and dance, but then you don't really need to either. Yeah.
I would say you would have had more people saying, I'm vegan, what are you doing, even share?
Well, there's a lot of that too.
Yeah, like you get it. It's so much. There's so much that you get now. I don't eat meat, but like it's just just for whatever reason, I still eat fish. But I mean, there is so much. Everybody has an opinion, is what I'm trying to make.
Exactly, and
you're never
going to
please everyone.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm not saying that some people's opinions aren't valid. Our opinions are all valid, and we all live our own truths, whatever that might be. And some people go through ugly periods of truth in their lives, and but it's all about growth. So I'm all about growing and evolving, and I'm all about accepting people for who and what they are. Yeah. So whilst I say I'll kill you with blindness, as in I won't see that, it doesn't mean that I don't take on board stuff that people say, nor do I ignore people's own experiences, because some people, I know that I'm very privileged in lots of ways. I feel I've worked my butt off to get where I am.
Yeah, of course.
And, I don't come from a privileged background, but that's all relative, I suppose. Yeah. We all worked really, really hard in my family to get where we are today. But I won't diss anybody for being, from coming from privilege, or anyone who comes from poverty. Like, to me, we're all humans. And I think we have to learn to respect each other online as well as in real life. Yeah. So what I think, I suppose, generally talking about this whole be kind thing and people being unkind, a lot of people are saying things like, social media is a mean place, social media is this, that. Social media is simply a platform where you are, or you can become and project who you are or what you want to be. So, it's not social media that's at fault. It's how people and individuals use it that's at fault when it comes to this being unkind or being mean, or let's use the word trolling. I just think we shouldn't blame social media. It's just an extension of who and what we are in real life.
Social media does a serious amount of positive stuff. Do you know what I mean? Raising money for charities, raising money for awareness for homeless. There's so much things that it does. So,
community, connection, all of those
even
things.
Like now that we're all like isolated, Instagram stories get a good laugh out of, and get so there's
TikTok,
lots of positive.
amazing. how amazing for TikTok was it that so many of us were locked down and had the time and ability to start learning silly dances, you know, and start lip syncing to things, you know. So I just think TikTok was brilliantly, or I still think it's brilliantly funny. I mean, I know Instagram's competing with it now with Reels.
I know. I think, and I would love Instagram's just you left Snapchat just to do its own thing. Left TikTok. You don't need it all. You don't need the whole market. You know what I mean? But that's where they're at. But like, so I would love just to hear with you with a bit of advice. Like you're very good at. People aren't really as strong as you, right? As you sort of said there, and people don't really have the balls to say, yes, well, do you want to know what? This is what I think. And I've seen you defend like your close friends and colleagues and clients, you know, online. And I think you do a really, really good job. But I think you do it very dignified. And I think you think it, well,
I did put a few swear words in there the odd time. And like, you know what? Yeah. When I put swear words in, apparently a couple of the trolls were saying I was unhinged and all this. But like, come on. You know, anger is a really good and valid emotion. So if someone's dissing my mates or my clients, I will defend them to the hilt. Like, I don't take any shit. And I just think, again, it's because I'm a little bit older. I just won't take any shit. And I'm sorry if I'm not allowed to swear.
I don't think you've said the older thing. I think 15 years ago, you probably would have done the same thing in a bar. If someone had said something that mightn't have been online, but you would have defended a friend or a client in a restaurant or anywhere, you know?
I think I would defend, you know, I'm not saying I've got the clean as a whistle morals, but I do think, you know, I stand up for what's right. And I would always do that. And I wouldn't like to sit back and let something bad happen to someone with my knowledge, including just being talked about, or including, you know, very small
isolated
unkind things.
Like,
I just don't believe in that, and I think my parents brought me up to do that, and you know, I think. Anyway,
I'm the same. I call my friends out. See, whenever my friend comes to me and says I'm breaking up with so and so, and this is the reason why, I'm like, you have been an idiot. You know, I've been listening to you for the past like X amount of months. Like, you're one of my closest friends, and I love you. But like, cop on, take responsibility for yourself. So you can call out like even your friends and your clients if they're being wrong. So I think it is.
But I think it's about communication.
Yeah.
So I think when we're talking about calling people out, yes, whistleblowing, all of those kinds of things, you can call somebody out. But I think, you know, online a lot of these trolls say, oh, we're calling out the fakery. But the thing is, the trolls are fake because they're hiding behind fake accounts. Yeah. So if you have something to say, certainly to me anyway as a person, you know, say it to my face or in my DMs. I'll happily have a conversation with you. I will take on board what you have to say. But, you know, don't hide behind fake accounts and then call other people fake. Okay. But going back to your question about some of your clients, your friends not having the balls to take the bull by the horns and to talk about the
let's say confidence, because you want to know, some people maybe just don't have it.
And I remember the very first time I did my own selfie video on Instagram, and it's like, oh my gosh, cringe. And the only way you get over that is by doing it again and again and again and again. But I think this is where influencer marketing comes in. And again, I use that word influencer. You know, you don't have to tell your own stories. Maybe get other people to tell your stories for you. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you've got staff, then get your staff involved. Yeah. So if you've got, so like I said earlier, at Fashion Week, we would give, say, some of the interns working backstage, I would give about 5 or 6 people the logins for Fashion Week at Fashion Week, and I would get the interns to tell their story, and they would be like, hey, I'm Matthew, I'm working behind the scenes today at Fashion Week, and here my job is to do this. And then I would give, you know, a couple of the models to log in and go, hey, my name's Ellen, I'm behind the scenes and I'm getting my makeup done, and then after that I go into hair, and then I go to fitting. So she'll tell a little story about behind the scenes, because a lot of people know what's out front in Fashion Week, which is models walking down a catwalk in pretty clothes, but they might not necessarily know all the steps that go on behind that. Like, it's, you know, it takes 6 months to create the event. It, you know, even stuffing goodie bags if you're a volunteer or whatever, or, you know, the models coming in the morning. Like, some people want to know what models eat, you know. So all of that kind of information. But Fashion Week, I suppose, is easy to market because it's a supposedly glossy event and one that you feel would sit very naturally on Instagram. Let's take, you know, say a chiropractor, for example, a chiropractor who didn't have the confidence but was really amazing at spinal alignment. So, you know, the way I would suggest marketing or trying to help market that business on Instagram is for that person, as you said earlier, that person's an expert in their field. So start either creating little graphics using Canva or anywhere else, or you can download pictures from Pinterest or Google Images, you know, pictures of the spine, and then put your own little quotes beside it. So you can start doing that in your Instagram grid and on your Instagram stories. Then introduce yourself talking about your spine. If you don't want to talk about your spine, maybe ask your customers once they've been with you to give you a testimonial. Ask them if you can type that up and write it in a quote. Put that onto your Instagram grid. Then, you know, do before and after photographs. Then, you know, maybe get your client, if he or she is happy, to do a little video testimonial, put that up. Then maybe, you know, there are so many different ways that you can create content. And I'm trying to think of ways where you, maybe the chiropractor, don't want to get in front of camera.
Yeah.
You know, you can ask certain clients if they would be happy to have a camera in the room. And, you know, actually one of the great things about spinal alignment, because I've only had it done for the first time recently, and this is why I'm talking about something so fresh, you know, is the crunch that happens when you actually get your spine or your hips or your neck aligned. It makes this really crazy crunch. And that gives that wow factor, and that gives a smack of immediate interest for anybody watching it. And that's the sort of thing people would actually share. So your goal is that, you know, you create content and people watch it. An extra bonus ball would be if people watch it and then they shared it. So they put it in their Instagram stories using the little paper airplane, and they say something like, listen out for this crunch, or ouch, or whatever it is. Actually, it's not so at all, because it's just air pockets. But, you know, that sort of thing, you know, your goal is to get people to share. And then what I would do if I were that person is I would approach a couple of people of influence, people who have it's not necessarily about the numbers, so it's not necessarily about big audiences or whatever. It's maybe someone who is, and this is kind of what happened in my case, except my friend had the chiropractor and she got me a session, and then I did it, and then I was like, wow, I think you should. So I said to the chiropractor, I think you should. This person I know has fibromyalgia, and this person I know, you know, is a cyclist, so they may have spinal alignment. You should maybe approach them and offer them a free session in return for potentially, and again, I don't think there should be any obligation. If they find a positive result, then they will share it. So this has happened since, and I just think then it's third parties creating the content for you, you know, and then you being able to use that content. So you don't necessarily have to have the confidence to go on camera yourself at the beginning. You can create lots of graphics, and, you know, if you decide to have a look and feel to your site, and say you've decided that Tiffany greeny blue is your color, and you're going to use that lovely turquoise all along, then you can create your page accordingly. But I just think it's encouraging people to think outside the box in terms of how they get that content. And that's where someone like me comes along, because I come from a marketing background, a PR background, and I also work with influencers and people who have influence online, so that I could maybe, you know, it's about matchmaking.
Yes, I was going to say matchmaking.
So it's no likey, no lighty, or no lighty, no likey.
But you're also like so innovative and creative as well, because of all of the different shows that I've witnessed and seen, and the endless amount of events that you've been putting on. You have to be like, okay, we're doing this for this one, this for this one, and it's like that per client. So it's like, how can we make this engaging? You know, a lot of people would sometimes. I work with influence marketing as well. Like, we'll definitely have a conversation after this how I can pair my clients up with yours and up with you. But what sometimes they say, I don't like paying for that, or I don't like giving the service for free. And I said, look, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you were paying for the yellow pages every year. Do you know, you were paying for flyers to be made. You were paying for billboards. You were paying for radio ads. You're paying for TV ads. You no longer have to pay for that anymore.
Yeah.
But you still should have that budget.
Yeah.
People think because it's Instagram, because it's free, they shouldn't have to pay it.
Yes, but also they need to recognize that someone's output on Instagram takes time to create for a start. Yeah. So like, you know, if someone comps me a free meal, okay, which might cost the restaurant maybe £20 or less, £10 to actually make, and I'm talking basic costs. So it might cost the restaurant 10 or maybe £20 to make. But if I take photographs of it, and I've invested in an iPhone 11 at whatever, over £1,000 to take the best photographs that I can. If I take photographs of it, then me taking photographs, maybe adding a filter, maybe doing whatever, maybe bringing along a little £10 light that I've bought on Amazon to light it beautifully. That takes time, and adding the right caption and then tagging the business in that, whether that's a restaurant or not, or maybe tagging the chef, him or herself. That's me giving away a wee piece of me to you. And then also I've got to recognize that 8 to 10,000 people a day watch my Instagram and my Instagram stories, and actually sometimes, some days, that's more than read the local newspaper or listen to the local news or whatever, that would listen to, say, a radio station that they might do an interview on. So sometimes the way I look at it, and you're very good to talk about the flyers and stuff, and I just say to people, well, would you expect the Belfast Telegraph to give you an ad for free, or Cool FM Downtown to give you an ad for free, or the Ulster Tatler? No, they wouldn't, and rightly so, because they value their media. And therefore, why wouldn't someone who has an audience of 10,000 people, and when Tiffany Brown was online, she had between 30 and 40,000 people watching her Instagram stories every day. So, and there are plenty of people who have much more than I, plenty of people in Northern Ireland, and even lots of people who don't call themselves, people of influence, but they have a big audience watching their stories every day. And why shouldn't that be valued? I don't understand.
No.
Some people will choose not to do any commercial work or feature any commercial products at all, and that's great, and I respect that, and I think that's fantastic. It's their choice. But other people, see, I'm a marketeer by day. So I get so many people saying to me, oh, will you give me a wee shout out in your Insta? And I'm in a pernickety position, because I'm like, well, I'd love to if I had a full-time job doing something else. But actually marketing is my day job. So I can't separate my day job from who I am. And there are blurred lines there for me. So I'm kind of like, right, well, I do really like supporting small businesses. I love supporting like mums who work from home. I love supporting single mums, because I'm one myself. I know the struggles. But I'm also aware that, and I say this, would X media give you a freebie? No. So, even if you give me a nominal amount, then let's talk about proper marketing. So yes, I feature so many businesses on my Instagram stories just for gifted product. And that's usually because I know them. I've had a previous relationship with them. Either I've been a customer or they've worked with me before. Or I just like their product, or I like what they're doing, or they're a cool bunch of people. And, I've spread lots of news before, if a company's hiring, I'll share it. And these are all things I do absolutely for free, and because I want to, and because I know I've got a platform that could help these people. But I think when someone comes to me and they've got a commercial product that they want to promote to generate sales or to generate footfall to their business, then they have to be aware that I value my business as much as they value theirs. So, there's time to create, and all these people, big companies. Let's take one of the ferry companies. So previously they would have had to book a whole camera crew. They would have had to book a stylist, a makeup artist, a hairdresser potentially. They would have had to book catering for the day. They would have had to book
15,000.
Yeah, so you and then they have to do the media buy on, Sky or ITV or whatever it is. But now, if they send a person of influence and their family potentially and their car over to Scotland, and that person creates their own video, and the content might be lovely, because there are some brilliantly creative content creators out there. So if the cost difference is unbelievable. So, I think that people who make great content, creative content, should be valued. So there's valuing the creativity, people who are good at taking pictures or good at taking videos. And then there's also valuing and allowing for the value of their audience. So some people say, oh, I only work with micro influencers or nano influencers, people who are, smaller than 5K or smaller than 1K. And actually some of those guys are super engaged in their own little communities and in their own niche. And that's brilliant. So I would definitely recommend some of those for brands that I work with. But others want the volume, and they want the biggie. So, you've got to recognize both the creativity and the audience. And for me, depending on the product or the company or the business, it's finding the right blend and the right mix of both.
Yeah.
So in the old days, we might have, even in traditional PR, you might have created a press release and blasted it out to every single media journalist out there. But if you were working a story particularly carefully, you would maybe choose, right, well, I'll give this journalist this angle. We'll give the business story to this newspaper or magazine or radio or TV, BBC Breakfast or whatever it is. And then we'll give another angle. So we'll give a human interest story to this journalist. Yeah. So you would still be getting your client lots of coverage on lots of different media outlets, but you would carefully work through different angles. So you've got to apply the same science, if you like, to influencer marketing or social media marketing, which is, using, say, a first-hand experience of, we talked about the ferry, so let's use that as an example. Send a girl, say gluten-free, send her and her husband and their little son over on the boat to Scotland, and they create content, and it's brilliant. But I also think there's room for paid advertising as well. So so whilst you pay the influencer to create the content and to recognize the value of their audience, I also think it's really important to recognize that Facebook and Instagram and even TikTok, they all have, and even LinkedIn, if you're selling a business service, you can advertise on all of those platforms as well. So I do a bit less of that, but that's really important too.
We do lead generation in Bankhouse. We do lots of lead. We run fitness businesses. We run digital marketing. We sell online courses. Yeah. Lead generation is huge, like
massive.
All of it,
funnels, all of those
totally,
things.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And we've got really highly successful converting funnels, and I love that. That for me is like, I don't really think about the money. I'm more thinking about like how much can we get conversions and change that copyright, and let's move that button. Let's change this.
And it's really interesting because man, as in us humans, we've been making and selling stuff and trading since, like as far as,
my granddad would have sold you his jacket,
Yeah. And that's an amazing thing. It is a skill, as well. And, we've got to recognize that the world needs to turn around. We do need commerce. So we do need salespeople, and we do need...
And the people that you're actually promoting, right, and they're expecting it for free, that business is going to generate revenue, though. It's like they're making money. It's not like you're taking something from them and they're getting nothing back. They're making money. They're all being well, hopefully promoting or whatever.
So if someone gives me a free meal and I put gifted in my thing, and definitely in terms of the balance, they're definitely on the good side of the scales of balance there than me. They get more out of it than me, but that's okay. Like, I love food and I love cooking, and I used to present a TV show for food in RTE 25 or 24 years ago. But like, I love it. So, and I'm passionate about that. And I'm passionate about, I'm passionate about lots of things, and I'm passionate now about sustainability. And like, so I'll share all those kinds of things willingly and freely. But I suppose there's a lot of negativity around influencers. Yeah. But actually, there are a lot of brands being charlatans too, brands and businesses. Yeah. So we have to, I think we need regulation in the industry, both at an influencer level in terms of their output, but we also need regulation of the ad agencies, PR agencies, brands and businesses who are, and I mean, I work with loads of them. There aren't many, but there are some who are pretty charlatan in their approaches as well. So, we need regulation.
It's because it's so fresh as well. Like, it's happened, and it's people have got the control.
But it's not going anywhere. It's only
going anywhere. Like,
it's
people are going to take it, and I think that's great. And that's why whenever you talked about, like, we sell e-commerce websites out the door, like every day. Like, we have a sale going for an e-commerce website because people have got their own product. They're doing drop shipment. They're creating stuff. They're printing journals in like their local towns, and they're selling them online for very bespoke for a bit higher price, and they can make profit at it. So I think there's so many people out there. But just going back, I know you mentioned Tiffany there did have 40,000 people. Is she still not online? Did she not?
No, she came off Instagram because she just got really sick of the trolls constantly analysing and obsessing over every detail in her life. But also what they were doing was, and they do it to me and they've done it to others now, they take what they see on your Instagram and then they piece guesstimates of what you're doing and piece it together and get something completely wrong. So the jigsaw puzzle looks so distorted. And they were just really flipping mean. Her name is Tiffany Bryan. Her initials are TB. So they called her tuberculosis. Is that kind? No, it's not. It's just damn mean. And then, they would say things about her partners, you know, her ex and her current. Then they would start saying things about her family, her parents. Then they started messaging, you know, who wants that? And actually, Tiffany now is quite happily living an awesome life. She does have an Instagram presence now just for her private friends. And she's still living her awesome life. She's still got amazing pictures on her Instagram stories, but she just doesn't allow those people into her life. So in her, whilst loads, the majority of her 65,000 followers and 30
miss her. Yeah.
Whilst the majority miss her and love her and genuinely followed her for good, you know, the small minority of people, and we're only talking about 30 people, you know, here, the small minority of people who would have picked holes and everything, or who would have talked about her on trolling forums, you know, they don't get to see her. I don't know if she'll come back. She may or may not. I would love to see her come back, because I just loved her content and I found her really inspirational, just from a healthy eating, fitness, what she wore perspective, all of those things. And I did love when she shared all the homes that she was selling in her day job too. And again, there's that curiosity and that nosiness we all like to see. You know, who lives in a house like this. So I don't blame her for going off, and you know, I think she feels that she's won because she doesn't give access to her life anymore. I know that a big number of her followers, you know, those 65,000 people, really miss her. You know, lots of people message me to say they missed her, but she just couldn't be bothered giving in to the other, to the...
And again, going back to it's her choice. Do you know what I mean?
It's her choice.
Everybody's choice.
And, you know, she's showing them that they mean nothing to her, those individual negative trolling people. And, you know, they don't, and it's killing them with blankness. So you can't see what I'm up to, so I'm going to take that away from you. No, you can't do it. So, I mean, the sad thing is they'll start to focus on other people now. But, really, when you think of it, these guys or girls or whatever are just... like, they must have some really horrible thoughts and feelings inside to be so mean and nasty. And, you know, for them to think that everybody's got an ulterior motive and they're twisted and whatever, I mean, that must be how their minds function. So you can feel a little bit sorry for them, but...
Well, that's it, you know. Well, that is a really good place to leave it, Cathy. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for coming in. So how does everybody find you that hasn't already?
So on Instagram, I'm at Cathy Martin, CathyMartin. I'm on Twitter at Cathy Martin, and I also write a blog called The F Word. So that's thefwords.com. So TheFWords.com. I have been creating some content on there, not massive amounts of late. I've been on my Instagram stories loads, and I've been, you know, my Instagram stories are a mixture of my cats, my adopted dog, my walks on the beach, my work, what I'm doing, my daughter, or family stuff, my food, my skincare. Actually, my skin's ruined. So I just share all my day-to-day stuff, and I really enjoy it and love it. So if most people can, I'm pretty easy to find online if you Google me. That sounds weird, but yeah.
Brilliant. No, that's great. And thank you so much. And I will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great chat.